So, hello everyone, it's Ozgun here, and I'm with Ailos today.
What's going on? How are you guys?
We wanted to demonstrate you our latest release, Ego Dead. Today it's gonna be a walkthrough for this song. I'm gonna show my parts on the song, then Ailos gonna take over the stream. So before I start the video, I like to tell. So this track actually was called "Death of Melbourne," and it was Ailos' original track, and he asked me to make a remix of his song. And this idea starts like that. I was so hyped to make this remix and like put my stuff on it. And after that, after I show him what I got, he says, okay, let's convert this to an original song and yeah, release it together. And this track's story is like that. This is how we came up with this idea. Okay, now I like to show you my project, and I'm gonna start with the kick and the bass. This is the kick layers. I have actually 3 of the layers of the kick. As I remember, I just extracted or rendered this kick from some synth, maybe even Nexus. It already had the small rumble tail with it. But if you have a rumble tail, you cannot use any bass with it. You know, you need to separate them. So I just use, So I just use this technique. Actually, I saw this technique from Medics. You can achieve this from, couple ways. The technique is like that. You just divide the low end, the 2 parts, and the upper frequencies, we don't have any processing on them. Below 100 hertz, we are just cutting the sub frequencies from the tail. Then the rumble tail doesn't contain the low frequencies. So we are totally safe to use and layer another bass top of it. And this is the second bass, main rumble bass. It's just like low cut it in the very sub frequencies and high cut it. There's just a sidechain with it. With this, you can just layer them together. And I thought it's still not enough, and I decided to put just these 2 samples. They are just the portions of the kick itself. They are not a Neve sample. I'm just processing it in a separate channel, giving some overdrive, some EQ to just band pass it, some EQ to fit it to the mix, and I think that's all. So this is just to give some groove to the main rhythm of the song. And yeah, that was the full low end. Actually, this is pretty simple because all the processing made by Ailos. So yeah, actually like this kick missing some top kick, right?
Yeah, I think I had a different top. I think we kept the low end, and then when it was in my session, I changed just the punch.
Yeah.
From memory. But yeah, the low end, I definitely remember the tail is exactly the same.
So other than that, in the drop, we got some stems from Akil sent me. This sound is just continuing all the time.
And techno perks.
Yeah, they make the drop so depth, adding very depth.
Yeah, candy.
Yeah, exactly. We got drums. I don't want to talk about the drums that much. They are just, generic techno drums, I can say. And most of them, some of them I used it from my previous productions, and most of the sounds I find it with Production Music Live. I think Peak Time Techno Pack or something like that. I was digging that pack when we were making the song. We got some ear candies on the drop as well. Maybe I can show it to you. So we got some reverse sounds. Yeah, this sound is one of the revealed recordings presets. I like to use some FX as like one-shots, and they fit pretty well to the drop. And we got more one-shot samples. And yeah, this LFO FX sound, one of my favorites. We also use it on the pre-drop. And as I remember, this sound is from the Producer School's one of their packs. It's just an FX sound again. And yeah, those ear candies are just happening all the time in the first drop. We are having a very ambient. And yeah, in my project, I think that's all I got for the first drop. And with just some sweep noises and FX. Those FX also from the original song that Akil sent me. Yeah, I decided to just use his FX stamps, and yeah, they were already so good, so professional. Some small drop fills. And yeah, that's all for the first drop. Maybe we can go to the break section quickly. In my project, we had other vocals. We didn't have the final, that female vocals, that angelic vocals we have in the track. In this project, we got these vocals. Maybe I can show it to you.
Oh, name of Voyager. The time has come for you to seek new levels of reality. Your ego and...
Yeah, so the lyrics were same. We find those lyrics on a YouTube video, and Akils actually just make it very robotic. But in the end, he thought a female, like angelic female vocal, would fit to the song better than this one. So we decided to just work with an actual singer, and yeah, decided to record her voice and use it on the track. Other than that, again, a very ambient break section. I had the midis from Akil's first project, and because I was changing the arrangement of the break, I needed to recreate the pads. So as I remember, I just used 2 layers of pads and a choir. And choirs are from Flex. I don't know. I have tons of choir preset plugins, but I end up always with the Flex. It's just so fast. I love its workflow.
Well, so this is the original record that I started with, and it's very, very different. And I think originally I called it Death of Melbourne. And I called it that because it was kind of like a nod to the Melbourne sound and how it was, well, the old version of the Melbourne sound was so dead, and it had kind of evolved into this new techno sound, which was probably proliferated a lot by Will Sparks, to be honest. And that's what gave me the idea of it. So shout out to Will, because he really has pioneered a new genre and he's carved his own lane. But this was the original vocal I had. And that was it. And I just kind of started the drop like this. This is kind of a signature thing that I do, cutting out the last beat in a 4-bar section, putting a little impact there. I think this bass line, I mean, it's not really that relevant, but because I don't think we ended up using it. But I think you added a different kick, and then we kept some of that kick and added the punch. So it was back and forth a few times, but we did keep some stuff from this first drop. Yeah, so like these perks, these are just perks that are like techno, reverby, knock type things that I used in a previous track. And this as well, this knock. We got this one too, with a bit of reverb on it. There's a little reverse sound there. This timp fill, I think that stands for timpani, because it's like an orchestral sound. Yeah, I believe I used that in my Silence remix. So a lot of these are just sounds that I've repurposed. But this breath sound is not. Did we keep this in the original or the final version? Not sure. All right, so this again is a sound that I used in Just a Dream, previous record. So really, a lot of the original version is ear candy, some of which we kept and some of which we got rid of. because you don't want to make things too busy.
Mhm.
But this is the original version of the song, essentially. So from here, we went into, I started introducing these chords in the last section of the first drop. Which is just a choir. And then into the second or the first break. That's the main line for the whole breakdown, pretty much the main chords. Which I don't think we used this synth in the end, but we kept the chords. So it was just a serum originally, and we had the arrangement pretty much stayed the same. It's the same amount of bars, but yeah, pretty much these chords is what we kept throughout the whole song. And yeah, they're just like big 5-note chords that carried the vibe of the song around it. Like it's a very dark vibe, which is what I like about it. And this vocal was also very dark.
Yeah.
So yeah, it works well.
Yeah, we don't know which choirs we used in the end, or
Yeah.
which pads.
I think we'll confirm that in the final
Yeah,
project.
exactly.
I'll load that now, so it's ready.
And yeah, Akil sent me those vocal stem, but yeah, in the end we didn't use. Yeah, I put some Neve Hover respace, but we don't know if we use this as well. But this is just a generic respace, as I remember.
I think we did.
Yeah. So it's Medix, one of the Medix presets. Then I think yeah, we got two of the ambience sounds in the background. They are so subtle, like barely hearable, but adding some texture to the section. And after this build up, yeah, we are jumping to the second drop. So let's talk about the second drop. Yeah, this is like one of my favorite drops so far. It has too much energy, you know. I just want to break some stuff when I hear that.
Yeah, it's dope.
And that's pretty very basic, like MIDI. It just contains two notes constantly. And because this is the Phrygian mode, so the track, the break section is in E minor. But in the drop, we are just converting to kind of Phrygian mode, which like in E minor, you don't use the F note. It's forbidden, but you can use F sharp and G in the E minor scale. But if you just want to make it more rise the tension, you can go to the Phrygian. Instead of using F sharp, you can just use F. I mean like just one note after 100 cents. Then you can create this very tension. Yeah, with this just two of the notes working in this drop. The sounds also just one preset, just one sound. And processing wise, I think you made, you know, more processing to it when I sent you the stems. But on my side, let's check. I have DST just to color it. This is Matt Nash's distortion plugin. And it's very, I'm always using all of my synths. Like I'm starting my chain with it. You can color it and it's just doing the job. It's kind of like OTT with distortion. I have some EQ. I got this Tikify, so this is also adding some distortion to the sound, make it more fat. I have some EQ to just fit it to the mix. Suit just to tame a little bit of resonating frequencies, and other than that, it's just delay reverb. And yeah, this is the reverb I used, but I think I don't send you with reverb, right? You ask for dry versions, maybe. I'm not sure.
I think I would have done that.
Yeah, I sent you without sidechains and without reverbs, as I remember. But yeah, this Rich is one of my German friends making this plugin. And this is very good for, you know, techno sound design. I'm recently using this reverb a lot. And I just have an OTT. I'm just routing them in another channel. So most of the processing are mute, just to make it a little bit more fat, I'm using Isotope Trash. This is a free stereo plugin. It's just making it a little bit more wide. And other than that, I got nothing. Like, they are muted. I just have sidechain, but in the end, yeah, Akils use his own sidechain. That's just one droplet, that's all. And other than that, yeah, we have this enlightened vocal shots. We still have this on the final project.
Yeah.
Enlightenment. Enlightenment.
That's from the original vocal,
Yeah,
even though we changed the voice actor.
we still wanted to keep this, and I think it fits perfectly to the vibe. And other than that, yeah, what is this? Let's see. I don't know. It's just an hover sound. And all the drums, all the low end, everything is basically same with the first drop. I think we can now jump to your project.
All right, so yeah, Ozgun sent me all these stems, and it looks like I would have asked for them with no reverb and no sidechain, as Apple gives me the spinning wheel. So, and that's because I prefer to route everything into a sidechain plugin that's on my instrument bus. On an instrument bus and also on my vocal bus, and anything else that needs sidechain I do in the individual tracks, but that's just my process. So for example, like these tracks, well, no sidechain, but when they're played together, this shaper box is doing its thing. The reason I like doing it that way is because it gives everything a consistent sound. If you have too many sidechain plugins in the project, unless you're very strict about how you control them, it can get a little bit chaotic. The other thing is I like to do sometimes bus processing on this instrument bus, say for example, or on the vocal bus, maybe on the drums bus, whatever. And if it's already sidechained before it gets there, then it can cause issues, particularly if it's like dynamics processing. So that's why I always do it at the very, very end. And then everything's done by an equal amount, including the reverbs and delays that I'm sending everything to here. I have like only one reverb and delay that I'm using in the instrument bus here, but if I had more, they would be all there. So yeah, Ozgun sent me all these stems, some of which were from my original project, but probably most he added himself using the chords and stuff that I had come up with to begin with. So I think that's from your project. So from there, I did add a few things. By the looks of it, I remember now adding this sound. We needed some ear candy in the first drop. The first drop is all about ear candy, I feel, because it's like minimal. I've got this nice little fill that I think you did in your end. Now it does remind me, this kick had some of this kick. And what did I do with it? Let's have a look. No, I changed it. We didn't use any of it. Did we? No, I think we used the.
I think same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's from your project. So I would have kept that and added this, which looks like two kicks layered together. One is a hardwell kick, and one, I think that's probably a Dub Vision kick that I've sampled. And the way, similar to what you do, I use shaper box as well to carve different parts of the kick out. And then often I'll also put that in an RX outside of the project, as Isotope RX, and run it through phase correction, because sometimes I find that like the parts of the waveform get a bit out of control on the plus or the minus side, and then that hits the limiter and can cause problems. So I may have done that with this because it looks nice and uniform. Can't remember, to be honest, because it was quite a while ago, but yeah, that's the end result. And then I've also got what I do sometimes is when I make kicks, I'll kind of do this with two shaper boxes on top of each other and just make them so that they have a good relationship and they're not overlapping. You can also, in shaper box, I mean, I'm sure you probably know this, Ozgun, but you can right click and go flip vertical. That can be very helpful. Yeah, that's the low end. And then it's going into a compressor that I like to use a lot for low end stuff, but anything really that needs a lot of compression. It's a Supercharger GT. It's a very old plugin from Native Instruments, but it works a charm. I really like it. And it's just some gentle compression settings on there, which is just like a medium attack and a medium release. So that's usually my go-to compressor for the low end, meaning like the kick and the tail or the rumble all together. What else? What else we got here? The drums we kept pretty much the same, except maybe I added, yeah. So the drums we kept pretty much the same, but I added a couple of claps. If I solo the claps here, very subtle. Couple of claps with reverb, and then all together, that's the original perks. And yeah, the rest of that kind of stuff. I think I added this hat loop as well, which is a noise hat loop with some reverb. And that would have been going also through sidechain, so it wouldn't clash with the kick. It's going through a transient master to make it a little bit more transient, taking the sustain down through some EQ, which isn't doing anything, and then into the shaper box. So any hat loops and drums that kind of are long or have long reverb tails, I put sidechain on all that.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't clash with the kick. If I like to add reverb to my drums sometimes with techno records, but if you don't sidechain them, like it can take away from the impact of the kick. So I try and have my projects so that when my sidechain automation is on, as you can see there, everything is sidechain, like nothing is getting in the way of that kick. And it just, if you stay diligent with that, I find it keeps the project a lot cleaner in the end, like, and it makes mixing a lot easier. So even I don't think I've used any rides in this project, but if I did, I would also add a sidechain there, stuff like that. So this is one thing I did. Your effects shot here, this was really cool, but I felt like the second time we heard it, it needed something more, so I just shifted the pitch up. And that sounds like wicked, which is a very, very cool sound. So yeah, one other thing I did was add this little arpeggio.
How did you slow down the arpeggiator?
So there's a tool in FL Studio. Basically, like you could do it with a normal arpeggiator in a plugin and then slow it down manually, but I found it easier to do it this way. I think it's called the Flam tool. I don't use it very often, but it's somewhere in here. Yeah, I think it's that one. Flam or Claw, one of those two. And if you set the settings right, it can...
Oh, I didn't know that.
It can... There you go. I teach you something today. No, but it might be the Claw machine. One of those tools. I wish I could remember exactly, because every time I want to do it, I remember this happens. I remember I go tools, and then I play with a couple, and I get it wrong, and it's that tool. But no, I do think it's Flam or Claw, and then you can play with the settings and slow it down, but only within a certain range. So you'd select those and then see how it gets like longer and longer towards the end. Sometimes then you have to manually just shift the notes as well. But I wanted it to be, because I'm not changing the project tempo, I wanted it to be like an 8-bar section of slower and slower. And then I've also got an endless smile going up there. So it starts off with this FM filter. And this is probably a serum. Yeah. And that FM filter is probably one of the mods. What pack is this from? Evo Sounds Paradox. There you go. So I've just played with a few of the settings there, and it starts off like that and finishes like this. And then by the time we get here, it's slowing down. Yeah, you get the picture. So the endless smile is just basically, I think that's probably on the first setting, and it's just giving it some washed out reverb. So we've got this sound as well. which again is some ear candy. Is that your sound or my sound? I can't remember. It's probably my sound because it's just a single audio clip. But yeah, I added this riser as well. So that's just an audio clip with the pitch manually stretched in real time, using real-time stretch and going up and up. Pretty simple. I've also added this sound, I think I mentioned already. I added this metal sound. I've got this sound that I've called Bob, don't know why, but another little arpeggio, and that's a Nexus preset by the looks of it, with some reverb and delay. So a lot of this song is just little bits and pieces that are making up a lot of ear candy. I've got this sound here, which is from my track Hope. Just a saved audio clip, and this one too. I really like those. Actually, I use them in a few of my tracks. And then we've got the second drop, which is mostly your stuff. I don't think I've added much except for just little effects. Again, I've got this, that, got more Hope sounds. I've used this one, use this reverb, or reverse, I should say, not reverb. More effects. But the mixing side, let's have a look at what I did on your lead bus. And it looks like I have used your reverb, so I must have got you to send it to me. No sidechain, but reverb, because I'm not sending it to any other reverb. So just a little bit of EQ there. Take out the harshness. A lot of these preset packs, I noticed, like particularly the Maddox ones and Big Room Techno ones, they boost between like 3 and 4K to give it that harshness and loudness, but sometimes they overdo it.
Yeah.
I find, so quite often I find myself digging out that frequency spectrum. You can hear it. And then I've just got some saturation on the very, very top end. I used the Ozone Exciter almost exclusively for high-end, adding this high-end crispness with the tape module. And I haven't really found any other plugin that does it as well as this one does. So that's why I keep coming back to it. I've got this Vitamin plugin, which is it's a saturation plugin, but it's more like a filter. And I'm using that just in these sections to bring it down, like the end of the 8-bar section. That's just bringing it on and off. And I've got that just on a single band isolating, you know, with very steep EQs. So that's pretty straightforward. You can do the same thing with like an equalizer. We're also automating this flanger in certain sections, which is my go-to flanger. It's Native Instruments Flare. And then we go up an octave. And that's pretty much it for the mixing side of things. I do believe I brought the volume down during the break with this GA. It just stands for gain automated. So I think I brought it down 3 dB. That's something I do a lot in the breaks when I'm introducing the leads, because kind of we don't want it to be the main focal point in the breakdown, but we want to introduce it so it's like familiar, and then it carries more impact when it comes in at full volume on the drop. So quite often I'll just dip it by 2 or 3 dB and then bring it in as well. So what else do we have in the second drop? Won't talk about the mastering because we got this mastered elsewhere, I think. Did we? Yeah. Name of. Okay. All right. So this vocal, we originally had a male vocal, and we wanted it to just be a little bit crisper and carry a little bit more of a seductive emotion, and something that would be maybe a little bit more, you know, if you're in a crowd at a rave. Obviously, it's very psychedelic themed, this vocal, like what she's saying. And we felt that if it was a more, maybe let's say modern female vocal performer or voiceover artist, it would carry a little bit more impact. So that's what we did. We hired one, and this is what she sounded like completely. I'll turn all the effects off and we can hear.
Oh, name.
Oh, turn the sends off as well.
Oh, name of Voyager. The time has come for you to seek new levels of reality.
Now, as I can hear that, I can tell that we've time stretched it actually.
Yeah.
And sure enough, if we go in there, there's a little bit of, yeah, so we've stretched it a little bit because you can hear the time stretch artifacts. So it was probably a little bit quicker originally. So the first thing I've got is RX voice denoise, and probably the reason I've had that is because the original recording had like noise in it, and a lot of the time when you get raw vocals from vocalists,
Yeah.
they unfortunately don't filter the noise out themselves. It would be nice if they did, but probably they can't hear it because they're not processing it. And the problem is then you start putting it into compressors and stuff, and then all the noise floor comes up.
Yeah.
So I really like this plugin, RX voice denoise, because it allows you to basically just clip a little silent part of the recording.
Mm-hmm.
And if you tick or detick this box and you click this learn button, you can train it to that noise profile. So then it runs, you could call it like anti-noise. It's basically like a smart inverted signal to eliminate the noise. It's like noise reduction, but you have to train it on what noise to reduce. If you train it correctly, then it works really well and it gets rid of just the noise and nothing else. So that's the first thing in there. Second thing is this Nectar, which Nectar is a vocal plugin that has a lot of individual modules. So I'm doing quite a bit here. Let's go through it one by one.
Oh, name of Voyager.
Got a dynamic EQ here, pulling down the low end.
Oh, name of Voyager.
That's a static bell, static bell, static bell. And then a de-esser.
Oh, name of Voyager.
Doing its job. Everyone knows what that does. Pretty heavy compression here.
Oh, name of Voyager.
Into a saturator, like a tube saturator, which is like a old school analog sound. And then another EQ, which isn't really doing much. So from there into a dimension expander.
The time has come for you to seek new levels of reality.
Which it sounds a lot louder because it's pushed really wide. But yeah, it's just a simple technique that I use in the mix to two things. One, obviously to make it wider, but it can also give the effect, I find, of making something louder because it is pushed further out. It's particularly dimension expander when you bring the size all the way down. So sometimes if I do that, I'll also bring the volume down because it no longer needs to be as loud. But of course, always check that it sounds still okay in mono. And then I've got it into an altar boy.
The time has come for you to seek new levels.
And this is automated. So it starts off here and we're just automating the mix.
Oh, name of Voyager. The time has...
So if we were to listen to that full mix level, it would sound like this.
Oh, name of Voyager. The time has come.
So yeah, that's just using the same pitch. That note is like the same or a compatible note in the scale that we're using. So that's why it kind of sounds okay throughout the whole thing, and it's just slowly automating upwards throughout the break. So at the start, it's not much.
Oh, name of Voyager.
But by the end,
remember,
it's louder.
This is now the hour of death and rebirth.
So that's that. I think we're also using, I'm using some of the drive. I really like the drive in Little Altar Boy, and I think that is based off Decapitator.
Yeah.
And then I've got some soothe as well, which is just flat soothe.
Remember, this is now the hour
Not
of...
doing much, but probably cutting out some hush frequencies. I saw around 4 to 8K. And then I've also got some back verb. So should I explain how we make back verb, or briefly? Back verb essentially is once I decided that this was I time stretched all these vocals and I had the dry signal perfect. I basically rendered that to an audio clip, which is, you can see that old one there actually. Let's unmute that so you can see what I mean. It sounds like this. It needs to go out. It sounds like this. So by itself, it doesn't sound very good, but when you put it into a reverb, like a reverb send, and then record just the send, not the dry signal, just the send, you get a reverb track to the reversed vocal. Then you render that reverb track which would have been this track here. And you'll see I've got the reverse knob clicked, or the reverse button clicked. So originally it was like this, and it would sound like this. We turn it on. So again, that kind of sounds a bit weird, but when we reverse it, we get back verb. Now, to make it sound that way, it depends on the reverb you use and the effects and all that kind of stuff. But this has got like a bit of a tremolator almost effect on it, which is nice. But the most important thing as well, I would say, is I've got this sidechain on it, which is ducking it to the dry signal from the original dry vocal. Without that, it can get a bit chaotic. So if we play it together,
name of Voyager.
you can see when the dry vocal plays, the back verb ducks. You can see that happen in real time.
Oh, name of Voyager. The time has come for you to seek new levels of reality.
So that's the back verb. That adds a lot. So altogether with all the effects.
You are about to be set.
Oops. Need to mute this whole track altogether with all the effects.
You are about to be set face to face with the clear light.
I've also got this big tail send that I use quite often, and to like highlight certain phrases. And that's something that I've used in previous tracks, and it's like a patcher module.
Mm-hmm.
So I can break this down quickly. Essentially, you can see there that automation clip is just quickly sending that phrase to this big tail track and then bringing it back down. The first things, this is the mono, converting it into mono, but not by folding it, by using one channel only, so that we don't get any phasing problems. If there are phasing problems in the original vocal, unlikely, but just in case. Then an effect rack, which is just decapitator and echo boy, so some distortion and some delay. Then it's going into a cheap FL Studio reverb, and adding some reverb over the top in line. Then an OTT, which is crushing everything and making it sound kind of digital distorted as it does. Then we're filtering out the bottom end and the top end so it doesn't get out of control. And then it goes through, again, a sidechain, which you'll see has another separate input. This is sidechaining against the dry signal, because when the dry vocal plays, that's all we want to hear. We not want to get rid of all the tail effects, but we want them to kind of duck down so that we can hear the dry signal, because there's a lot of tail effects going on. It's really, really washy. And if we didn't do this kind of stuff, it would sound messy and we wouldn't be able to tell what the vocal's saying. So yeah.
You are about to be set face to face with the clear light.
There's also just a standard delay and reverb in there as well. So lots of effects. Did I miss anything on the vocal?
Yeah, that was perfect, I think. I like your processing. You are keeping everything inside of the Neutron, you know, working with tons of plugins.
Yeah, I like, this is Nectar actually, but yeah, similar to Neutron.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try and do that. Like, that's what it's for, you know, like you may as well use it, but can't always, you know, there's certain things that it doesn't do.
Mm-hmm.
There's some cool features, like I'm an isotope boy, you know, like a lot of guys, like yourself included, use FabFilter, which is great. FabFilter's awesome. But I really do feel like isotope has some features, particularly with cross plugin communication.
Yeah.
That FabFilter doesn't have. So I've kind of over the years trained myself and got used to the isotope workflow with Neutron and Nectar, and there's a few other, obviously Ozone, but there's a few other little plugins as well that communicate with each other and make life a lot easier when you're trying to identify problems in the mix and carve things out. And they can do pretty much everything the FabFilter stuff can do. I quite often will use, for example, here I have a sidechain from Vox Lead. So again, the dry vocal signal, which is, what is it? It's this one here, Vox Vic. So you see that's sidechain to my instrument bus. And then I always use this Neutron with generally like a real wide and steep EQ profile that's not doing anything. If you on Neutron, if you click dynamic and then click sidechain and then click external and then click full signal, on FL Studio you also have to go into the processing window, right click here and select the right or the correct sidechain signal and then enable it. If you do all that correctly, then you'll get a nice sidechain signal from your vocal track to instrument bus. So that's what I do in almost every song that has a vocal. I try and get the mix good without it, but then just adding that extra space, doing something like this. And I also try and ensure that the center point for the bell EQ here, it's going to be different for every song. Like a male vocal tends to be deeper. The way I figure that out is by just using my ears and dipping across the spectrum and thinking to myself, like, where does the vocal sound most clear? Is it when I dip at 500? Or is it when I dip at 750 or at 1K? And then, decide what to do from there. There is also like track spacer type plugins, and Neutron has that as well. There's an unmask module, which is cool. But what I find with vocals, if we use those kind of tools, it tends to overemphasize the masking or the clashing on the higher frequencies. And actually, like the way our ears are made or the way our ears are tuned, we're tuned to hone in on vocal sounds between basically the mid-range, like between 250 and 4K, around that range. So instead of using like a track spacer and having it, cut out all the harshness and stuff, that can be nice sometimes if you use it sparingly, but I find it's best to just do a nice big mid dip, because our brains, the way we hear vocals is that's where we're meant to hear them. So like when people get old and they lose their hearing, they lose quite far all the way down into the mid range, down to like 4K, but they can still kind of understand voices because that's where the intelligible part of the spectrum is. Anyway, without getting too bogged down in that, this is kind of what it looks like.
Oh, name of Voyager, the time has come for you to seek new levels of reality.
As my computer dies. So yeah, that's the vocal. You do have some of the vocal in the drop as well with that enlightenment repeating. Let's just solo that, see what it sounds like.
Enlightenment. Enlightenment.
Together.
Enlightenment. Enlightenment. Enlightenment.
And then we've got the formant shifts playing around with that too.
Enlightenment. Enlightenment.
Enlightenment.
And yeah, it just adds some nice depth. Anything else to explain?
I think that's all. Yeah. Nice explanation. Appreciate it.
Any specific questions that you have on what I did? And
So you mentioned you are face fixing the low end
yes, yep.
with
So
RX, you said, or something?
yeah.
How do you do that?
Okay, so you can open RX when it wants to load.
Untamed low end can be the biggest nightmare of the mastering engineer,
Yeah. Well, so let me take a kick, like maybe one that I know probably this process hasn't been done on. Okay, so there's one. Let this kick in. All right, so there's a module here called phase.
Yeah.
And all it does is if you tick adaptive phase rotation, like if one of these waveforms or parts of the waveform is going higher than, say, the positive side is going higher than the negative side, or the negative side is going lower than the positive side, then that means that you're going to lose headroom because it'll hit the limiter. Or any compressor, any kind of compression, it's going to hit it on that side of the phase first, that side of the cycle. Like one of these, like 0 + 1, 0 - 1, 0, that's a cycle. And so it's like electricity, like AC electricity almost, or AC voltage. So when it goes to one side more than the other, it hits the limiter when it doesn't need to, because it's unbalanced. If you can think about like a limiter is on both sides of the waveform, like say it was here, say 0.5, it's not, we're talking decibels, obviously, but you can imagine, say it was like -15 decibels dB, and it was here and it was here, it would be hitting one side and not the other. So it'd be doing kind of this. To avoid that, that's what this phase tool does. So we tick adaptive phase rotation. That just means that, like, if you don't tick that, you can manually move it around. But if you do that, it will just make sure everything's centered, and then you render it. It's made some changes there. This one wasn't too bad to begin with, but yeah, this isn't a problematic one. I've had some kicks. Maybe I can find. There's maybe a good example, actually. This is a kick that I've sampled from another song. All right, so you can see just here.
Yeah.
So it's too late to fix this now a little bit, but there's some soft clipping.
Yeah.
That's see, like for example here, like that positive, that negative. You can see that negative soft clipping because obviously I've processed it, or maybe the original producer processed it this way, but it's soft clipped into the negative end and not the positive end. So what that means is there was some phase offset there. It was going too far down, and potentially that could have been avoided if it was more centered. So does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This one I may have already done it, but when I'm like rendering like a full part of the beat, like the kick and the rumble, I find this good to do. So yeah, I must have already done it because I didn't make any changes. But that's what soft clipping looks like. And ideally you don't want to have that until maybe the mastering phase.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is already
And when
done. So
under this, it's gonna be more consistent. There won't be
yeah.
any unwanted peaks, surprise peaks.
Yeah, and actually I learned this from a mastering engineer because a good mastering engineer will do this on the whole song before they put it into the limiter. So I have to admit it's not something I do on every master. I should. I think everyone should. But I tend to do it only if I can hear problems. But yeah, quite often the master, like the whole song, there will be certain things that are recorded live or from a synthesizer where there is not DC offset but phase issues. So phase offset, I think, is the correct term. And so if you don't eliminate all that phase offset and center it, then it can cause this. You can't go as loud as you otherwise could. You can't push it into the limiter as hard because then it would you'd be sacrificing or using headroom where you don't need to, so you can get more headroom out of it. That's where I learned that because it made me think. It made me think when I learned this with mastering. I thought, well, what's the loudest parts of the song? That's obviously your low end and your kick and bass. So if you can, particularly when you're sampling kicks, you get that right in the mix, then it can help later on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Appreciate for the tip. I didn't know how to use this. I never used RX, and I'm gonna check.
Do you have it?
Yeah, I haven't.
RX is great, man. It's so expensive. You have to get it on sale. It's like a really, really professional tool they use in post-production. So it's got all these tools here. All these tools. So before AI, they used to use this music rebalance. This was AI before AI, actually, because this has been around for a few years, and people will solo the vocal in a song with this tool.
I remember it. My old workplace, I was working in a music studio here. We were using that. I haven't used it personally, but yeah, we were. The people in the studio was always using that in the mastering stage.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good in mastering. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things. Most of these I don't use that often, but sometimes if it's really good for repair. Like if you get sent a vocal, like a lot of vocalists obviously aren't producers or engineers. So quite often I've been sent vocals from vocalists that have sometimes quite bad distortions in them, and you can repair them quite well. It's amazing what this can do because you kind of select the part that's distorted and you use different tools like there's a D-clip that's really, really good. Obviously the noise, the D-noise as well, like I showed before. D-click, like a lot of recordings have clicks and stuff. Because of digital artifacts. Heaps of stuff. It's like the Edison plugin in FL, but really like super advanced. It's just crazy expensive. I wish it wasn't that expensive.
How much for it?
I think the full advance is like $1,000 US, but I'm pretty sure I would have got it on sale. I don't think I would have paid that much. It's crazy. But you have it once and then it's forever, which is what I like about iZotope as well, because so many manufacturers are going to subscription models. Which I hate. Like I've gone completely off Waves now. I can't stand their system.
Now I'm paying tons of different companies, and you are become depending to them. Like if you don't want to pay the subscription, you cannot launch your previous projects. So now I'm dependent on Slate bundle, I'm using Virtual Mix Rack for almost all of my projects. The workflow is so good, but I need to pay $10 every month to have that service, and it just doesn't make sense to me in the long term.
Like the whole world, the whole tech industry, going that way. It's called SaaS, SaaS, software as a service. And that's how these tech companies make their money on subscriptions and users. But it's a great business model.
Yeah.
But when you're an end user, like unless you're a, say like an enterprise business and you have multiple users and you're turning over cash flow and you can afford to have like bundle subscription, like say you're like a creative studio and you have like Adobe as a suite and you have 6 employees and you buy them a subscription each, then it works. But when you're individual, it kind of hurts over the long run.
Exactly.
Yeah, man. All right, well, I think we've covered more than enough content for you to put in a little video, so
Yeah.
So hope everyone's going to enjoy that.
I hope so. So if the audience, if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to write in the comment section. We will check them and try to answer all of them. So yeah, thanks for watching today's video. That's all for today. Yeah.
Peace out.
Yeah, peace everyone. Take care. Bye bye.